Welcome back. This week, the Northwest Immigrant Rights Project filed a new lawsuit representing 3 women who are seeking asylum here in the United States.
So we've got Executive Director Jorge with us in studio to talk a little bit more about this lawsuit. Good morning to you, first of all.
Good morning.
So let's talk about this lawsuit in light of the federal judge in San Diego, which ruled last night that they want to see these separated families come together, and they set a deadline on this. Talk about your lawsuit and how this ruling might affect that, if at all.
Sure. Well, our colleagues in the ACLU had filed this lawsuit in San Diego a couple of months ago, and this was actually before the whole widespread separation of families that we started seeing in May. But the lawsuit had been moving kind of slowly, and so we had held off initially because we were expecting a ruling, but we decided to move forward with the lawsuit earlier this week because there had been no ruling from San Diego. So there's a little bit of overlap between the two cases. We're also challenging the fact that our clients have not been provided with the initial step of the asylum process. They've been detained for over a month, and so there's some additional issues that we're going to continue fighting for in this lawsuit, but we're definitely very pleased with the ruling yesterday from the court in San Diego.
So tell us about these 3 women that you're representing. What is their situation? And I'm assuming you've talked to them. What is life like for them right now?
Well, it's very difficult. So there's one of them is detained at the Federal Detention Center in SeaTac, which is where initially most of them were held. But a group of them, 3 dozen of them, have been transferred now to the Northwest Detention Center, which is in Tacoma. And that's where 2 of our plaintiffs are detained right now. And I think the situation for them is primarily just anxiety about their children. I mean, that's the question that they keep asking us repeatedly: is how soon am I going to be reunited with my child? And they all have children, ages 6, 8, and 9. And they're just anxious because while 2 of them have been able to be in touch with them, one of them, as of yesterday, had not been able to reach or have any contact with him, and it's been over a month.
Wow.
So there's just tremendous anxiety about that, and obviously there's concerns about their own cases, but really the question that they most ask is about when am I going to be together with my child.
And what's the holdup? Why can't they reach their kids? Is it because of the government red tape, or is it just a language barrier?
I think mostly initially it was because there was no coordination in communicating where the children were. So it took, we saw for several of the women that we've talked to so far, it took 4 weeks for the government to even provide information about where the child was being held. And then one of the women told me that they gave her a piece of paper with the phone number for where the child was, and then she couldn't get through the prison system because they had to pay, and she didn't have any money. We've since been, and thankfully to the community here, we've actually put money on the accounts of everybody who has a child to make sure that they can make phone calls. We think the government should be allowing to do that without paying,
Sure.
But that had not been happening.
The scene seems a little chaotic, with people who either don't know where their kids are, haven't been able to get a hold of them because of the situation. How hopeful are you that reunification will happen within the time frame that's been determined by the judge?
Well, I think we will have to see that, because I agree with you that it was completely chaotic. I mean, this reminded me a little bit of what happened with the Muslim ban back in January 2017, where it was kind of chaos at the airports because the administration kind of implemented this policy without really thinking through. And so, for example, 2 of the cases that we're dealing with, 2 of the plaintiffs in our case, their children are now in New York. And so, just the logistics geographically of trying to bring people together are going to be pretty challenging. They have to comply with the court order, but one of my concerns is going to be that the administration will try to appeal this decision and will fight back even against this very reasonable decision that the judge issued to reunify these families within a 30-day period.
So you're breathing a little bit of a sigh of relief, but there's still a lot of unanswered questions.
Absolutely, and we're not going to let up the fight because each of these cases individually is still going through the asylum process. So there's still interviews that are happening right now. People are going to have an opportunity perhaps to have a hearing before an immigration judge eventually, and so there's still going to be needs in helping individual asylum seekers to navigate the asylum process in the coming weeks and months.
Be interesting to see the results of this lawsuit, what a judge says, and we're just going to keep following. It's a big story, Jorge.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.